obliged all other law students to imitate her dancing. Prabhupada did it, Saraswati was dancing in front of Shraddhi. The Bhakti Yogi, even a child can do that. Anyway, just raise the girl in full Krishna consciousness and she will be a great preacher when she is young. This is like Prabhupada describing his transcendental family. In one interview, Prabhupada was asked by a reporter, "What about your family? You used to be married. Are they Krishna conscious?" Prabhupada said, "Not very much." "Is your wife Krishna conscious?" "Not very much." Prabhupada said, "Therefore, I had to start another family." And he pointed to his disciples. And he was, "Prabhupada, good guy." So Prabhupada took his role as a guru, being most personal. And that what got us going. That was actually obliged us to respond in the same similar personal way. This is something for preaching. Prabhupada, when it comes to explaining preaching policies, then the letters get actually very long. You know, it's almost like purpose on its own. That's where Prabhupada is training devotees to be, this is again to Shyamasundar, explaining to him how to explain to people the presence of God, how God is present. So Prabhupada writes, regarding the presence of God, both the theists and the atheists have practical experience in two different ways. They are as follows. The atheist is hypocrite that he says that there is no God. There is presence of God both in the theists and atheists. The vivid example of this presence of God, both before the theists and the atheists, simultaneously is Lord Nrsimhadev. Lord Nrsimhadev appeared before the atheist Hiranyakashipu as death, and he appeared before Prahlad Maharaj, the theist, as the benedictor of blessing. So God has two features of appearance. To the atheist he appears as death, and to the devotee theist he appears as the supreme beloved. The hypocrite atheist says that he does not believe in God, but he cannot say that he does not believe in death. That's what Prabhupada said always. You believe in death? You can say he doesn't believe in death. Everybody is dying. Then Prabhupada said, well, that's Krishna for you. You will come, don't worry. You will see him. So, that's what he is explaining here. Our definition of God is that he is great. That the atheist does not believe in God means that nobody is greater than him. He is, so to say, God himself. But he is enforced to believe that death is greater than him. In other words, atheist who says there is no God, actually what he's saying, I'm God. You know, because he issued the supreme statement. But Prabhupada points out, death will come for him. And that's definitely supreme to him because the death will just take him away. In other words, death is a representation of God before the atheist. The atheist theoretically can deny the presence of God, but the presence of God in form of death is present before him despite his flouting. You have seen the picture of Lord Narayan. He has got 4 hands, and 2 hands are for the atheists, and 2 hands are for the theists. For the theists, devotee, the Lord has lotus flower, or blooming peace and prosperity, and control, dissipating all inauspicity by its vibration. But for the atheist, there is the big club for hammering on the head of the atheist, or separate the head of the atheist by the sharpened edge of the disc. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord says that he descends in every millennium to give protection to the faithful and to annihilate the miscreants. So God has got always these 2 features in his authority, namely protection and death. So the atheist is hypocrite himself, and he says that he does not believe in God. He has to believe in God in the form of death. A criminal hypocritically says that he does not believe in the government, but a civil citizen abides by the law of the government. The government is present therefore both for the criminal and for the law-abiding citizen. To the criminal, the government is present as force of law and order, putting the criminal in the prison house and giving the civil citizen all facilities for peaceful life. So that's how Prabhupada explains the preaching line you should assume while meeting an atheist, simply pointing out that there's a force higher to you, and that's death, and you will see it, you will experience it. There's a long letter to Jayapalaka Maharaj, which is like, I can read one more here, where Prabhupada addresses obviously various questions asked to him, various issues. You can easily guess the questions from the answers because they are so close related to the questions. So obviously Jayapataka, not Maharaj yet, dear Jayapataka, Prabhupada is explaining to him, we spoke today with Anger on the street on this, how to see the world around us actually without and maintain Krishna consciousness simultaneously. Okay? So that means, like example, Prabhupada gives the example, looking on women is not an impediment to spiritual progress. But looking on women with a view of sense gratification is detrimental. I quoted today to him, this is what Prabhupada said. I can also see there are many nice girls in this movement. I can see them. You know, despite my age, I can see there are many beautiful girls in this movement. But you Americans, you plan always for more. And that's where the difference lies. That you know that the senses were registered. Oh, that's very nice. Because in the form of a nice girl, you will find combined, Krishna really made it perfect, the illusion. You will find accommodating sound, form, even smell. You know, it's all inviting. You know, yeah, very nice. You know. But the danger comes when the attachment comes, planned for sense gratification. How do I enjoy it? So the actual fact is that attachment for sense gratification is not at all congenial for spiritual progress. In this country, intermingling with women is very easy, and sometimes our mind becomes agitated. I just heard yesterday Prabhupada says, really in such a cute, innocent way, he said, in connection with the Mangal Thakur story, he's telling to Mr. Ellington Ginsberg. So he said, yes, Bill Mangal Thakur had a girlfriend. That's, I think, how it's called in your country. It's called girlfriend. In our country, we call it prostitute. So plain, it's simply analyzed, you know. So there is no girlfriend, it's called prostitute again. That's the Vedic standard. Therefore, we have to take a little precaution, and the best precaution is to raise oneself in Krishna consciousness. Lord Chaitanya said that his mind becomes agitated even by seeing a wooden model. By seeing a woman, if one's mind is agitated, that is quite natural. If you take the words of Lord Chaitanya, that his mind is agitated by seeing a wooden doll or model, then what to speak of us seeing the actual woman? The real fact is therefore that we have to check ourselves by advancement of Krishna consciousness. But if it becomes too difficult for us, then one should get himself married and thus check his sex disturbance and peacefully prosecute Krishna consciousness. But if one can avoid sex life and the attachment is overturned for Krishna consciousness, his position is very laudable. So there is no need of becoming hypocritic. Better one can get himself married and be peaceful. That's just so far that. Then another question obviously was
what does that mean, being hypocritical?
Hypocritical means that what Krishna says, that when you pretend to be detached but you dwell in your mind being absorbed in an object of the senses, then you are hypocrite. It's no duplicity. It's duplicities. No? Of course, then you could go much more into it. If really for a lusty man one wife is enough, and how that works, and you will come very quickly to the point you have to understand you have to give it up one way or another. The idea of it's going to be a big fun. Therefore, it's a good trick built in there. You know, it's always the period of attraction, you know, infatuation, new. The senses discovered something new. New, you know, girl, a new boy, Well, how long this new remains? As we know, the senses get accustomed to a sense object. After a while, it doesn't really get so exciting, you know. It's the same thing. You know, it's nothing what you haven't seen already. Okay? So then comes the real testing period. What remains then? The senses will tell you, yes. Even husbands of the most beautiful women, admired by so many men, once they get intimate with them, after a while, you saw them, so what? It's like for any other sense object. You get a new car, you say, wow, look at this, you know, wow. And after a while, it's just a car, you know, you sit in it and you drive, and everybody says, you have such a proud car. You say, why? Yeah, it's my car, it's all right. This is how the senses work. So, of course, therefore there has to be a deeper values that is built in. So, it is described, it is stated straight by the Shastra, whoever is satisfied with one wife in Kali Yuga, he must be a transcendentalist. You know, that's very realistic. Bhagavatam, very realistic to say. He must be a transcendentalist because this is not, in Kali Yuga, such a degraded age. The senses want more and new and more and new, and then if you are satisfied just with that, one husband, one wife, that's an achievement. That's really an achievement. So this is, you know, what Prabhupada is pointing out here. In that same letter, you go from one question to another. The next one is actually of a very quite intimate nature because these devotees had those days a little problem, which we don't have nowadays so much. There, in the initial days, they're receiving direct service from Srila Prabhupada, and from him they learned that the disciple is supposed to serve the spiritual master. So obviously a question at hand is here, but isn't it offensive to take so much service from spiritual master? You know, yeah. Prabhupada explains it really nicely. He said, whatever the spiritual master gives in his own hand, it should be accepted immediately as his grace. Prabhupada describes also the problem, you know, which was there. In the beginning in New York, I was cooking myself and was distributing at least 1 or 2 chapatis to all my disciples. At that time, not less than a dozen. Gradually, Kirtananda Maharaj took charge of the cooking and learned the art very nicely from me, and then he educated all others how to make our present prasada. So in the beginning I was cooking, so there is no objection to take from spiritual master. It is a question of love that sometimes I cook, you eat, and sometimes you cook and I eat. So our Krishna consciousness movement is based on a complete fellow feeling and love, but there is a word, maryada, which means respect, which should always be offered to the spiritual master and elderly members.
How do you spell it?
Huh?
Maryada?
Maryada. Maryada.
Just like that.
Maryada. Yeah. So this Maryada is a quite important word. Because one thing we are struggling, the longer we stay in Krishna consciousness, the worse it gets. And it's called familiarity, which actually ruins the taste of this mutual service attitude. So this Maryada is quite an essential thing, and it cannot be done artificially. Like I would strongly object to any artificial designating like senior devotee and senior this. There is a reason for that. There is actually, it means something. And that means something that there is a mutual exchange of service. Otherwise there is a great danger the whole thing flops over in something called personal cult. And personal cult is something which you just worship somebody just because of age, institutional position, some external symbol, maybe a big belly or I don't know what, or a mount of garlands hanging around his neck, or whatever. All these are external things. Okay. The real maryada, the real respect comes by mutual sharing the service in the mission of spiritual master. And that's actually, then respect comes quite naturally. But you see, this devotee is doing so much service in that mission, and you are sincerely concerned with that mission, of course you get more respect for it. It's completely common sense. You learn even from him. And it doesn't depend on age, it doesn't depend on the year you joined the Krishna consciousness movement. That doesn't matter. It's like Prabhupada gives an example, especially in context with Devahuti and Kapila, her son. It's not normal that the son is instructing the mother. It's not logical. But in that context, when Devahuti fully understood, she was the child, and Kapila was the guru. Why? Because he was senior in spiritual knowledge. And by that we mean mainly Vijnana, realized knowledge. So it is the realized knowledge which should command this respect, not some external designation or something like that. Of course, respect is always nice. Prabhupada said actually once, you should even respect Mayavadi sannyasis, just because they are sannyasis, but that doesn't mean you should accept it. You should respectfully defeat them. Means, Maharaj, with all due respect, your business is the next smash into pieces. This is the way to deal with that. Lord Chaitanya showed this example. He just was sitting aside of the Mayavada. But of course, he was already defeating them by his effulgence. That's really spiritual power. He didn't even say one word, and they are already shrinking in size, humbly approaching, we would like to see what's your opinion on this issue is. That's really powerful. You don't have to say anything, you are just there. So this is very powerful. That is a quite essential point, because both extremes should be avoided. This cheap worship, name of personal cult, which is based on sentimentality basically, and also this familiarity on the other side, which also ruins everything. So we try to balance it in our lives. It's not so easy. But actually, when you think about preaching and mission, Srila Prabhupada, things kind of suddenly becomes easy. Somebody comes in and he obviously shows that he's empowered to do something within the mission. Of course, you have to know what the mission is. When you know that, then you automatically go, oh, this is interesting. How can we do this? And you develop the respectful attitude automatically. It's also you can realize somebody who is difficult to respect is somebody who demands respect. That's very difficult to respect. Shut up! I'm a senior Vaishnava. It's okay. Once again, India would be a great example for that. They have a title and everybody goes, what is the title? I don't know what the title is. Some title. And they go, because Indians have such a wonderful attitude to accept authority, which is very useful in spiritual life, but very embarrassing in material life. Because, just because he sits in that office and he has this title, it doesn't mean that actually he has some extraordinary qualities. Who knows how he got in that office and who knows how he got the title, So that alone is external. We respect because of a real spiritual qualities. dedication. Even with faults, even imperfection, but the sincerity of the purpose, that commands respect. And that automatically brings introspection, it brings all these things. If somebody is seriously struggling to really serve the mission, of course you have to know what the mission is. There were Prabhupada of the books, which we come to it now and point in the same letter addressed. It's actually nice what Prabhupada writes. There's a lecture, Vajrapataka Maharaj, Vajrapataka Das, was obviously the first one Prabhupada really empowered to preach in India. In this letter I don't quote this, but he's recommending him to go for Indian citizenship, to learn the language. Very specific assignment, which he didn't say to all the devotees, but to him he did. And then also, obviously, Vajrapataka Maharaj asking, he encountered so many Hindu societies in London already and in others, so how we are supposed to cooperate. And I will not quote this right now here to a great extent, but the answer is not at all flattering to any Hindu society on this planet. Not at all. So, regarding our books, there was some discussion about printing our books. Prabhupada writes at that point, regarding our books, yes, they are getting printed in our press and they will come out very shortly. And Prabhupada said, the books are being written specifically for my students. And I'm so glad to learn that you read them so carefully. So you see, that's the primary purpose of those. We always think like, growing up in Germany, it was like we distributed tons and tons of books. And then the warning came from Prabhupada, he said, but you have to read them also. Which was never the priority in Germany. It was just, Germans, then they get work, get it out, sell it all. But very often we had absolutely no idea what we are selling. So Prabhupada was always pointing to that. Ultimately he met the German Sankirtan devotees in London last time he was there, and he issued the ultimate challenge by asking one simple question: do you know the philosophy? And it was at the point German devotees were distributing most books in the whole world. We were shocked. I was in the room, it was total silence for minutes. No, everyone was shocked. Because we expected Prabhupada praise our results and being the number one in the whole world with book distribution, and we were just shocked. Then finally one of my brothers squeaked out, and then Prabhupada said, yes, what does it mean? And then Prabhupada gave the answer, and that was it. The meeting was over. We were completely shocked. And we just walked down. What do you mean by do you know the philosophy? Because he pressed exactly there where the weak point was. He didn't tell us to work harder. He just pressed exactly where the weakness was. So that's the priority. The books are being written specifically for my students. I'm so glad to learn that you read them so carefully. The words are ambrosial because they are not my personal words. They are instructions of my predecessors, and I am just trying to administer them to my best knowledge. That is the way of Parampara system. We have nothing to manufacture, but simply carry the message as a faithful panel. That will be effective. One should be very sincere to his spiritual master and Krishna simultaneously. Then everything comes out successful. That is the verdict of the Vedas and Lord Chaitanya. So this is a challenge, not to modify or change things. Even in a name, even it seems at a particular time to be, tempting and beneficial to actually adjust something or, one has to be very careful with these things. Especially tampering with the philosophy as such, and especially reaching out there and taking philosophy from material sources. There's actually Prabhupada, there is no philosophy. just speculation, that's all. You find also there's no conclusion really in these things. It always a tendency there in conditioned soul to take the spiritual essence and use it for material purposes. It's always there. Always. Always bringing some hidden things with them. It's like you enter the wonderful place, and then you bring a little piece of stew with you, and they're always like, just in case, it wouldn't be so perfect as I expected. It's actually boiling down to one point: lack of faith. To the degree we are lacking faith, to the degree we try to replace it with something else. Haituke apratihata means Krishna consciousness doesn't depend on any material circumstance, including material concoctions. Prabhupada, that was his unique feature. He had absolute faith. He said, it is like this and it is like that. And even it was not popular, it was not, and Krishna gave him such a result. And here we are sometimes trying to adjust this and that and there's no result. So, what are we doing? I mean, you could say today when we're chanting on the street, what makes people actually positive? It's the happiness of the devotees, that's all. They can feel it. The Hare Krishna is again. Even they don't understand the song, they don't understand the words, they don't understand one thing. But they can feel immediately. Prabhupada said, you know how he instructed devotees to preach in foreign countries when they don't speak the language. In such a simple way. You know that story, he said, it's about the Indian British officer, having his Indian servant. And the British officer left for the middle of the day. And he told the servant, clean the office and then I will come back in 1 hour. So the Indian man cleaned, but the Indian man had one disadvantage, he couldn't speak really English. So he was cleaning, and then he went out to get fresh water. Through the window, a monkey came in. And monkeys, they can do in minimum time, maximum damage. So the monkey just threw the papers around and knocked out the ink, and all this, and big mess. So the man came back and he was going, and then the monkey just jumped out of the window. A few minutes later came the officer back. And then he saw his office, in much worse shape as he left it. So he saw the Indian did it. So he was immediately getting heavier. The Indian started to panic, and he didn't know what to say because he didn't know English. So he just jumped on the table and he was jumping, monkey, 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 like this, And then the British man understood, there was a monkey here, okay, then just clean it up. So Prabhupada said, that's how we should preach. Even we cannot speak anything, even they don't understand this, and we should just jump, Hare Krishna, and they don't understand. It's a very simple instruction. It's like the monkey today, was sitting there, the man with the monkey suit, when the Harinam came around, he got affected, he got to start to wave and this. I was going alone back the same way, I passed him by, I waved to him, he was not so affected. Because he was saying, there's just no singing here, and there's just one Hare Krishna that goes somewhere along. No, he didn't respond hard. But when there's a Harinam, and the more it comes, the more affected people will be. That's how you preach in Kali Yuga. There's not really this. You can try, but it's a rare commodity that you can sit down and explain people something.